Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let's start our panel, fake news, from fake news to fair play, talking climate misinformation through AI in culture. So I'd like to say thank you to the audience and to our panelists. My name is Marcos. I am a research impact fellow at the Nature and Climate Impact team at the University of Exeter. And today we are here to talk a little bit about our projects and to approach this topic of data integrity together with our panelists. And I would like to start by introducing some important things that happened during this week here. So first, to highlight that first time that we have at the COP official agenda the data integrity topic. And also yesterday, we celebrated the signing of the Declaration for Information Integrity. Also, important result of the discussions that we're having here at COP. And as Anna Tony called it for this COP to be the COP of the truth. So we are very happy to be here with the space to discuss about this topic and to be able to think in different approaches to translate climate science into an engaging and accessible language. So we have this big challenge of climate misinformation is spreading fast, and with the climate action cannot move without public understanding. So much of our work at the Nature and Climate Impact team is to make sure that we can translate climate science in an engaging language. And this project that we are about to show in this session take advantage of football, very cultural adapted language to explore emotion and explore engaging and being close to the audience to translate climate science. So I would like to set the scene and introduce our project called Climavar. So Climavar, the name is related to the video assistance referee from football. It's a metaphor for the assistant referee. So when the main referee is not sure 100% sure about some decision, he can have the help of the VAR. And we bring this metaphor to climate misinformation context, where we use two AI models, first to identify and then to explain climate misinformation using football language. And I am very happy to be here with our panelists because you all have the chance to know our project and your support, and I am very grateful for your support on this. And so, you can be here with us. I will keep the slides running, so no problem. Yeah, and then I just keep the slides running with a sneak peek of the of Climavar. So basically, we have this interface where the user can input some text data, and we can check and identify and explain using football language. So I introduced this tool to guide our discussion today, and I want to start with a question to Guilherme. So to introduce Guilherme Canella is the Director of Digital Inclusion and Digital Policies at UNESCO. He's also a global leader in press freedom and misinformation prevention and ethical tech governance. So Guilherme, I would like to start this conversation asking you in terms of your global approach to fight climate misinformation. If you could share some thoughts with us in terms of how UNESCO is dealing with this topic and some activities that you are doing in this direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And first, congratulations on the approach of this project. I do think that one of the key elements for us in this conversation, and we have discussed this with Thais before, is to think out of the box, to be creative, and we need to find the ways to attract the attention of the public and of the different audiences. And this conversation of disinformation and the more broader and important conversation of governance of digital platforms. It's a very complex story, and actually, it's not that easy to translate that to the general public, and we need the support of every single citizen in this conversation. So, when we are able to connect these with important issues that are convergent issues, like football, for example, or food, or it's all these issues that actually connect us. Even when we are polarized, we are still pro the Brazilian football team, or we are still pro feijoada, or whatever, right? So I think this is super clever, and we need more of those things to connect the dots, to construct bridges on this very and unfortunate polarized world that is part of the explanation why we have so much of this growing and never stopping misdisinformation, but also conspiracy theories and hate speech that are other of the informational problems we have in the ecosystem. But to respond to you concretely your question, UNESCO number one strategy and recommendation regarding this overall discussion, not only related to the climate change disinformation, but the disinformation as a problem that is impacting climate change, but also health, also elections, and many other different issues in our societies, is that we should think about processes rather than specific pieces of content. So it's not really about a particular post that is there with a disinformation or a misinformation. It's about the entire governance system and the processes that lead to the existence of that post to be problematic, in the sense that can be amplified and so on and so forth. So very briefly, when we are talking about processes, what are our key drivers in this conversation, right? First and most important driver, everything we do in this area should be anchored in human rights, and particularly freedom of expression and privacy. So we need to be very careful, or we need to be extremely careful in not suggest solutions that will make the problem even worse. And these solutions that can make the problem worse are precisely those that are not anchored in human rights. Second important driver, any of these discussions should be multi-stakeholder discussions, which means that all the different players involved, the governments, the civil society, the private sector, the academics, etc., they need to be around the table to make this advance. Third important driver, already going into what we need to do to reshape these processes, is that we need to bet a lot our horses in transparency and accountability. So if these companies, for example, are not transparent and accountable, we have a problem. If the regulators are not transparent and accountable, we have a problem. So this transparency accountability. Fourth, we need really to think that the governance system is a complex system that is a mix of statutory regulation, co-regulation, and self-regulation. It's not one thing or the other, it's one thing and the other. And then could keep going, but let me just say about the fifth driver. We need to pay a lot of attention on the users, which is kind of what you are doing here, but what also you do, that is a lot about media and information literacy with a strong engagement of the users, but is beyond the education, is a real engagement of these users in the conversation and the users' rights in understanding why all of this is important, and particularly those that are in more vulnerable situations. Children, in many spaces, women and girls, people with disabilities. So if we don't look into those particular characteristics, we are not going to make it. So in 15 seconds, the UNESCO approach, and I realize this is maybe a bit frustrating because it's complex, but it's a whole of society approach, looking into the processes and the governance rather than specific pieces of content.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a complex problem, so no easy solution. The solution will be as complex as the problem usually. So Now with Thais to bring you to the conversation also. So Thais Lazar is a award-winning journalist and founder of Fala, and she is leading Mentira Tem Preço, or Lies Have a Price, one of the major campaigns related to data integrity around COP30. So Thais, how do you see future inherent to climate misinformation? If you could share a little bit about your work on how to explain and understand the whole supply chain of climate misinformation.
Thank you very much. I founded Fala some years ago. Fala is an impact studio, and we work to promote social change through storytelling, strategy, and communications. And just as you were talking, and Gladly told, the idea of creating engineers that could change the system, not a piece or a little box. So years ago, I created Life of a Price with the idea of how can we show the high cost of the supply chain of life. You know that a system that profits from the lies, but that we art with money, influence, and power. And this program on integrity information, we created with 4 pillars, with the ideas how you create this engineer in order to change the scenario. The first one is how you can inspire and help it to build public policies and big moments like the one we are having here at COP. The second one, how you engage in for climate. Understand that each audience you need to have a new solution. There is no solution for everyone. And the third is media literacy. And last but not least is product acknowledgement. And this year we launched the Integrity Information Observatory with the idea of connecting all the people that are looking for climate information, and could be a data scientist, a scientist, a local communicator, or an indigenous leadership. Because in the global level, you have a kind of impact on the climate information. But in the territory, you are talking about death, division, because you're talking about the land's rights. And here at COP, we just launched this report showing how the supply chain of lies work, how it profits, and how all of you here, we can be part of the solution. One of the things we created so many projects looking for communication. One of them was a humor show, talk about climate information on YouTube. And during 5 months, we reached 1.5 million views organically. And we remember about all the data, and it is something like really big, but understand the people that were sharing it for us. Oh, for the very first time, I understood what is climate change. For a humor show, 5 minutes every Sunday. Or, oh, for the very first time, I understand and I feel that I need to check the information I received on my smartphone. So the idea of creating vaccines that works against disinformation and hate speech, and how you can share the knowledge, like if you were a laboratory, so others can see how the vaccine development and try in their own countries and other scenarios. Other thing that we did, we created a podcast with indigenous communicators that was spread through 300 communities in the north of Amazon through radio. So we don't have Wi-Fi, but we have radio. So, and they created and they wrote their own stories. So we have like many solutions. The point is, how can we engage all these systems together to create a new kind of engineer that could change, and we can together find the solution and reach that goal. So this is the things that we are always talking about, and we have a 2-year program for the next 2 years looking for different solutions for climate information.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think for longer we thought that climate misinformation could be coincidence or maybe a mistake, but now we are discovering that there are much more behind it, and it's very important to understand the problem to be able to act and fight against. So yeah, thank you very much for your. And now we would like to welcome Kiran Gandhi. Please come to with us. thanks for being able to come here with us. So, Kiran Gandhi, also known as Madam Gandhi, she's a musician and artist focused on nature and climate. And well, today we are discussing how to approach climate science in different ways. So we are launching this, we are introducing this tool, Climavar, exploring football language to explain climate science. And from your work that you use news to do this translation. So please, if you could share with us a little bit about how this started, how do you think on this strategy of using culture, using music to talk about climate and to engage people and promote awareness about climate using your art?
Thank you. Obrigado. Boa tarde. O meu nome é Kiran Gandhi. Estou feliz de estar aqui. You know, for me, both the athletes, the football players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it's not us. For me, whether it's football, whether it's music, culture really has the chance to create global change at a mass scale. The athletes of the world, the musicians of the world encourage people to come back into their bodies, into their heart spaces, to join for a football game, to join for music. And when we feel happy, when we feel in community, these are the times when the grass is fertile to plant seeds of change and inspiration. And so as a young person, what I noticed is that when you're at the athlete games in the stadium, when you're at the music shows, teaching people about climate, teaching people about protecting the earth, inspiring people as to how they can actually make a change, whether it's reducing their own single-use plastics, whether it's planting trees at school, whether it's learning how to, use clean transportation. I think that young people especially want to be on the right side of history, but it's the way that our world is that it often makes it difficult. So in my opinion, this is one of the big ways we can make change is through culture and through the arts. And then the second thing I would share is that more specifically in my music, I've been spending time in the Amazon, in the Antarctica, in the Arctic, recording the sounds of glaciers melting, recording the sounds of the birds and the insects in the trees, and actually making music on Spotify, sampling the nature sounds. And when people listen to the music on Spotify, we donate the streaming royalties back to nature conservation. And so can we go to the cities and can we go to the busy and more polluted places with this happy music and inspire people to do right and become agents for change? So these are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Yeah, so trying to connect the dots. So let's go back to Guilherme. Recently, UNESCO had this promote this funding call to fund projects related to who propose to build solutions in terms of data integrity. Could you share with us a little bit more about this call and others that UNESCO promoted recently, and especially about the demand that how many projects you received, because you shared some data about this yesterday, and I think this is really important. In the same way that we have this year, we hit records in climate misinformation. We also have many people trying to build solutions and to develop projects in this, and share a bit more about this.
Sure, thank you. And first, let me explain a bit what is behind this idea of launching a global fund for information integrity and climate change, and hence this call that you made reference to. I mean, I think we all agree here in this room and the people watching us online and everyone in this building that we have this information about climate change. I guess no one is disputing this anymore, not even those that don't believe in climate change, whatever. But then we have a problem with the next step, because if you start asking more specific questions about this phenomenon, unfortunately, we have very little answers. For example, if we who actually funds this information regarding climate change, we do have some anecdotal evidence, but we don't have systematic evidence about that. If we ask, okay, but this disinformation has the same structure in Indonesia, in Kenya, and Brazil, we also don't have concrete answers about that. for many reasons. One of them because the studies that exist, they use different methodologies, so you can't compare these things. Then, if you start asking, for example, how exactly is the distribution of information used in the business model of the platforms, we also very specific and concrete answers with that we can use to generate evidence to then have better policies to tackle this problem. So, if all what I just said now is true, maybe I'm wrong, of course, we thought we needed to create incentives so that those that are producing this kind of data, investigative journalists, researchers, think tanks, etc., that they could do that in a more coordinated way, generating a wave, particularly in the global south, for understanding the phenomena of disinformation or the lack of information integrity, because it's not only disinformation, it's also misinformation, it's conspiracy theories, it's these things associated with hate speech. So there are different components here that are not only disinformation. So information integrity is a more comprehensive idea. So we thought this was important. But again, it was our hypothesis. So when we launched the first call just this last June, and we left it open just for 1 month, and believe me, our processes are very cumbersome. So applying to these calls is really, you need to be committed, because otherwise you don't do it.
I know.
Yeah, so I was absolutely shocked in a positive way that we received more than 500 proposals coming from 100 countries, really suggesting to us very, very concrete ideas about this, right? Of those 500 proposals, 300 plus were eligible. The other 200 didn't present all the documents, whatever. But it's really 300 solid proposals coming from 100 countries, which, and asking us, by the way, $39 million of money we don't have. But I think they really show an interesting map of organizations from different kind of structures. So as I said, investigative journalists, think tanks, universities, NGOs that are ready to act. And our commitment is to keep trying to find the funds to make this viable. But I have the educated guess that, and I'm sure we are going to find the funds, but even if we don't find all the $39 million, we already stimulate a very interesting thinking about this. I'm sure these organizations will, with our support, but they will find other support to also keep this wave moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you mentioned, you received a lot of creative proposals, and at Nature and Climate Impact team, we try to be as creative as possible. And for you, Thais, my next question would be, based on your experience so far, acting and working with climate misinformation, how do you see other kinds or other aspects of culture in Brazil and in other places? How any other aspects we could cover for this? Like we are discussing football. Do you see any other? Let's say we talk about music also, but what could be other ideas for us to explore climate misinformation?
Well, actually, I love it to try to create new ways, to engage. Understand that we need to create even things that don't exist yet, because the way people access information changed a lot, and we are not walking on this way. We keep repeating the same recipes, and for example, through our social media, just one community, we talk to 1 million people every year on climate information using humor, just through one social media channel. So this is, and for me, it's like, how can we use this opportunity to make more impact? Thinking about people's lives, not what we want, but how they want to create. We are developing just right now a TikTok program for teenagers, explaining climate information in a completely different way. Recipes, like if you are cooking. And other things that we want to do next year is a true crime podcast. on climate information. And because you need to understand how the audience gets information in order to talk to them in a way they can think about this and be part of the solution. So, and this is just some of examples that what we are developing in Fala, and we have also a 3D immersion for the next year in September. So there are a lot of things that we are running together because we are going to talk with different kinds of audience in each one. But I can tell you, for example, things that I've learned through this year. So there is a community in Tapajós. They go through the indigenous communities to talk about climate. And they don't ask, they don't tell what is climate change, or they don't tell what is climate information, but they ask, what do you mean when you think about climate? And through draws and stories, they started creating a solution for that community. So you can engage in impact projects that are going to impact millions of people, but you can also find a solution for a local community in a completely different way. Which is the best one? I don't know. I can't say, because for me, the community example or the football or what we are doing, this is something that we are talking to different audience, and in order to create this awareness, we need to do all these things together, like a good engineer, like the one she was talking, through music, through football, through social media, through a 3D immersion, or could be something like a report. You can engage in a different way. So, and I think we need to be open to these new ideas, and we need to try more, because generally what I hear is like, oh, but it's like we have 3 months and we didn't have the solution, or we didn't get there. 3 months. They are building climate information through years and years and years. So we need to be patient for the answers, and we need to be able and have courage to try different angles to tackle climate information.
Thank you. Yeah, and if I may add on this, I think also climate science does not need to be boring. So we recently, of course, it's a hard topic to cover and to explain, to communicate, but we are doing some efforts also at the Nature and Climate Impact team. In June this year, we launched a campaign in Brazil called Save the Flavors with a comedian called Rafael Portugal, and also with Globo and Instituto Oya, where we approach how climate change, the changes in climate are affecting cocoa, acai, and coffee. So we did this project with this comedian on the street, explaining and making fun with people. So we have creative ways to approach this theme, and yeah, we need to keep trying on this direction.
Yeah, it's really funny that you mentioned that, because when you first asked the question, like, what are some of the interesting things that Brazil can do to sort of reshape the climate conversation, the first thing that came to mind is food. Because as a foreigner, as soon as I land, everything is like cupuaçu, suco de laranja, maracuya, isso, abacaxi, and todo. And we don't have all of that in America. We just have simple ovo and banana, and that's about it. And the fruit doesn't taste as good. And so I think there's something here very much about savoring the fact that there's such natural integration of food, of wildlife in the mainstream culture that I think will really engage people. So the fact that you already are doing that with a comedian, like, I think that's really, really dialed in. Yeah.
And
there is another element that I think is very important here, that is we need, and this maybe is one of the most difficult part of the story, we need to have this conversation using the parameters that make sense to that particular community, right? So, for example, lots of these discussion in terms of polarization, including climate, is coming from very conservative groups. So if we try to convince these groups using our language, it's not going to work. So, and trying to use their parameters is not easy for us. So, a few months ago, there was an experiment where the different groups with different ideologies, without knowing that was going to happen like that, they were invited to have a conversation with AI machines. And the AI machines were programmed to try to convince them that a particular content was a disinformation content, but using the logic of those ideologies. And there was a control group that the machine was oriented to use the strategy that normally we do, right? And the results were super interesting. Those groups that the machine tried to convince them that that post was a disinformation, using their own logic, got better results in convincing them that they were the normal strategy. So I think this is also part of what they are discussing here, because when you discuss football, when you discuss music or food, this is what the people are identifying themselves, right? Rather than we behaving like ourselves, like very faithful people say, you need to believe this because the UN convention said you need to. That's not going to work. And I work for the UN. So anyway, so I think this is very important. And it's not that easy. It's easy to say, not easy to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. And when during your last speech, I was thinking, Kiram, you mentioned about the importance of talking about climate using things that we engage with. So you are a relevant artist, and you do this daily on your work. I was wondering, how do you see the role of artists, especially relevant ones like you and you mean, I mean, artists that who have a huge audience. How do you see the role of these artists on this fight against climate misinformation?
I think first and foremost, artists and musicians, football players, they're delivering a lot of joy. So first and foremost, there's a sense of trust because the artist is delivering joy. In YouTube, in the bedroom, in the home space, at the dinner table, there's already trust. And so because of that, there is the potential for positive influence. And a lot of the artists use that influence to sell people, you know, tickets to their shows and t-shirts. That's fine. But you can use that same power to sell somebody inspiration and awareness about what's happening on the planet. And so I have tapped into that conversation and that trust. Even the little bit that I post from the Blue Zone, I can see my own small audience online is so interested, so engaged. They're learning so much. And so this is the opportunity. And I think empowering the artists so that the artists don't feel you know, marginalized, like they can't afford to come here, like they're not welcome, all of these things, and to empower the artists, it's a big opportunity for the climate conversation. So I believe in it. I think there's joy and love there, and so I'm happy to be here. And thank you.
Thanks. Well, so to start to close our conversation, I would like to highlight just a few more thoughts on Climavar. So just to invite the audience to connect with us, to explore more ideas and solutions for to use culture, especially in football language, to approach climate science. We were discussing a lot this project, the Nature and Climate Pact team, and we truly believe that today we have AI that gives us scale. We have journalism and science that gives us trust, and we have policy, we have organizations that gives us the infrastructure. But I think one thing that we realized is that culture gives us meaning. So if we could put these things together, and this is our goal with Climavar, if we can build a solution with all these aspects together, we can have a really potential for impact and try to fight back and play this unfair game so far. So I would like to ask you a final thought on this, and especially if you need to choose one practical thing that you believe that is essential for, let's say, for the next 6 months or next year, your top one priority in terms of data integrity, what could you share with us?
Look, I think that the priority should be the realization of the urgency. I think we are I think we are not noticing that we have crossed already the 11th hour in many ways, right? So, and when I say that is not the sense that we should start panicking because this is not going to help, but that we need to, as my dear friend Maria Ressa would say, we need all to hold the line. So if we don't realize that, it will be very difficult because the challenge is very complex. Look, you probably all are aware of the 89% project, where these global opinion polls are saying that 89% of the population in this planet do think we have a climate problem. And this is actually a paradox. So if 89% of the citizens, the voters, think we have a problem, why the necessary action is not on the other side? There are many explanations for that. One of them is the way that disinformation is changing the logic of this. But the other explanation is that the 11% are very powerful. And facing this power would require all of us to hold the line. So this is what I think we need to do. Thanks.
Yeah, when you asked that, I thought, well, we need courage, you know? We need courage because, and keep believing. Because one of the things that disinformation and polarization gave to us is division. And we lose the capacity to talk to people that think it in a different way, you know, think it different than us. And for me, one of the things is like we judge a lot and we should start to listen more, you know, and call people in. Because this is something that we lost the ability, you know, to listen, to talk. And why? Due to polarization, due to disinformation. And in order to create things and things that doesn't exist or don't exist, we need to be able to listen more and try to think solutions that are good for everyone. And one last but not least, I think, is do we want people to think the way we think and defend for the same reasons, or do we want to then to be part of the solution? Because generally, we try to convince people every time, and for the reasons that we believe. So the way we are talking, it's so difficult for others to engage. You know, so this is something to think about.
I love it. I guess I would close on actually just more spirituality. I think the more that people need less stuff, the less we have over consumerism and polluting and depleting the planet. And so when I think of like what's the biggest opportunity in terms of the way that I can be inspiring people is the less that I need, the better I am as an agent for change. Like just the less that I need as a person from an ego standpoint, from a sense of lack, then we're not over consuming and needing to buy and shop and over consume. And so to me, this is a huge opportunity, and especially in music, which is a very egocentric like music industry, I think there is an opportunity for change where we're meditating more, we're more whole as people, we don't need so much, we take what we need and we're generous. I think that's sort of my prayer in this climate conversation. So thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I would like to open for our audience in case of any question. If someone has some comment to add also. All right, yeah, I think, well, if there's no question, I think we can close. And yeah, I want to really say thank you again for coming and for our audience for being here. Thank you very much, and let's keep fighting.